Wamkelekile kwinkqubo yakho entsha The Composer, brought to you by Grand Piano Truth with Sia. The Composer is our new slot that seeks to get into the minds of the composers of various songs, to know the ideas and concepts that went into the creation of a particular songs. With all being said, we have an Eastern Cape born, but currently Central Colony. I'm talking about an educator, art administrator, businessman, choir director, adjudicator, and in 2018 he was also nominated as an influential man of the year at the Eastern Cape, Back to My Roots, and he's also a composer. Today we have Mr. Sibusiso Njeza.
With me
Mr. Njeza, welcome to the composer. How are you, bro?
I'm very well, my brother. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm good, bro, man. Akho next man. Kunqaba kwakho ndikugqibele ngoDisemba ePitori.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Hayi ndizifihle emakhanda.
Okay, okay, but today, Mr. Njeza, we selected only two songs. We know you've got a wide range of music, but we selected only two songs today. That is UMTHETHO and
Okay.
Mandela, the African opera. So I want us to start with the song UMTHETHO.
Okay.
Listening to the song itself, I can hear the umthandazo, intshumayelo, and towards the end, I can hear that it's saying qoqani imithwalo, vulani inhliziyo nisindiswe. Ayinyanzeli mntu, and I forced him to, and I ayicenge him to, by please, yabo, and I forced him to bayenze lento. Can you take us through that song? What was behind your mind when you were doing UMTHETHO?
Um, it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
for a composer to analyze his own music
Yes.
and present it in the manner in which most analysts would do, more especially conductors, because conductors always look beyond, what is on paper.
Yes.
But for a composer, um, that's not exactly where you start when you compose a song. The emotion comes,
Yes.
and then there would be a message, and then you are driven through a process that you yourself can't really explain. It's a process that is beyond your comprehension as well, because you become a vessel that transmits the information and put it on paper, and then you pass it on to conductors. But be that as it may, I will try.
Yeah, yeah.
So the central message in UMTHETHO
Yes.
is around I would say, the commandment that we should love our God with ingqondo yakho, umphefumulo wakho, ngako konke onako. You must love the Lord your God. So that is the central message in the song.
Yes, yes.
And it comes through. It first appears as a question in the introduction of the piece, where the text is bangaphi abawenzayo umthetho kaThixo, bangaphi abayenzayo intando kaThixo.
Yes.
It's just a question. And then the soprano soloist then puts it out there that uThixo usombawa wasibekela umthetho.
Yes, yes.
Thanda uThixo ngenhliziyo yakho, ngomoya wakho nangengqondo yakho. Then that part is followed by a question and by a prayer. The prayer section, which usually people, confuse the text, because they sometimes say sisondela kuwe. When it says sisondeza kuwe,
Okay.
which means
Yes.
we are bringing to you izono zethu esizenzileyo, our sins that we've committed.
Yes.
And then it moves to a part where it says salahla imithetho yakho. It is very different to salahla imithetho yakho.
Yes. Okay.
In the past. It's something we've done, and we repent today. That idea, I always believe that God never leaves us. He's always with us wherever we are. And so when you feel that the presence of God is missing around you, in my opinion, it only means you have moved away from where you are supposed to be. Because that's where you left God. This is why you cannot feel his presence. Hence it says, sisondeza kuwe izono zethu salahla imithetho siyaguquka namhlanje senzele inceba. So we're coming back to you. Have mercy on us. Then the last part, niyabizwa nonke ekhaya qokani imithwalo sigoduke avulekile amasango vulani inhliziyo nisindiswe. My idea of ukusindiswa is not necessarily you joining perhaps a group or joining a particular church.
Yes.
It just says, because you left God, God is with you. But because of your doings or our doings, we moved away from him. Now he's calling us back to ourselves, not necessarily to a certain building. So, thatha imithwalo yakho ushiye yonke le irongo that you were doing. Take your baggage and come back home, because that's where God is waiting for you, and he's waiting for you within you, not anywhere else. So hence it says avulekile amasango, which means you can come back anytime. You don't know, you're not gonna wait for 10 o'clock the following day to go back. You can change now, even if it's 1 a.m. Go back to God. So that is just how the song is structured, from its introduction, the middle section, and the last part. But there are two most important, also there's two other things that are happening in that song. If you read under the title, it says reimagining CT Ngobe. So with that song, it's sort of a dedication to CT Ngobe, the composer, a man that I loved so dearly. I first saw Utatu Ngobe, I was in high school. I was in high school at the time, eJoa in Butterworth. Ndicula kwikwaya iSakhabe Ngoma, and one of the conductors was the late composer uBab Teenage Mahlangeni.
Yes. Yeah.
uBab Mahlangeni took me into his house. During that time, it was myself and my friend Usipho Fubesi, who is now lecturing at UCT.
Yes.
At that time, we were so crazy about music, crazy about singing in the choir, all of that. And so, but we stayed far from where the choir was rehearsing, because Singabakutendane Tina, and it's like 15, 20 k's away from Butterworth. So Mr. Mahlangeni took us, wasihlalisa kwakhe. But at that time, I experienced something beautiful between Yena and Utatu Ngobe. Every now and then, Utatu Ngobe would come in, bahlale. So there was that kind of fellowship between the two of them. And then I forgot about him, even though we were singing his songs in the choir, like I Kundlela Makrestu, Masimanyane Makrestu. Yes. Then, as a student at Rhodes, during the festival, there's that Grahamstown festival that still happens even now.
There
was a composers workshop that we used to go to at that time, that we would be invited in by Dr. Michael Blake. That's where I then met Utatu Ngobe again as a composer, and we were in the same workshop, including the late Nomia and many other composers around the country. So that's when we began to have conversations with Mr. Ngobe. That's when I became closer and closer to him.
Yes.
Shortly before he passed, our last conversation was about his crucifixion, that work.
Yes.
I don't know what he saw in me that he would say when he is done. He is going to invite me over to go to Emampondweni. Then we can sit and go through that work, edit it, and see what happens, from there.
Yes.
But unfortunately, before that happens, he passed on in
Wow.
2007.
Wow,
Yeah,
man.
so he passed
Eish.
on. And that thing continued to haunt me for the next 4 years, 3, 4 years. Because I kept on thinking, Wuti, what it could have been. I mean, imagine, sitting with a composer, getting
Yes,
into his
yes,
mind,
yes,
understanding
yes.
what's going on. A composer of his caliber. But I missed
Exactly.
that opportunity,
Eish.
unfortunately. So that song, Party, is my dedication to him.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because I loved his music.
Yeah.
And I tried in writing it to get closer to how he wrote his music. Of course, no one could ever, master his style, but I tried. Then the
You tried,
second
you
thing, which
tried.
is the last, yeah,
Mm.
okay. So the other thing that is written there, it says dedicated to Lizo Esther Mahlangeni.
Yeah, yeah.
Ubud Lizo was a younger brother to Mr. Mahlangeni.
The Matlangin, okay.
Yes, he was our section leader, Kuitenas Sakabengoma, and he is one man who really motivated us and had confidence in us. And I grew up to then work with him from 2001,
Yes.
where I was a student before.
Yes.
So we worked in the choir. So Babini, he was conducting the choir because at the time I was not a teacher. I had just completed my matric, but already I was the conductor of the choir. So on the day I finished UMTHETHO, it was the 3rd of January 12, and that was his birthday. He had passed on in 2006. I remember it was before the competitions where he was going to conduct Vukuyibambe that year. We were singing Vukuyibambe, and I can't remember the other song.
Yes.
So he passed on where we were in the rehearsals, and he was traveling from MADIBA to visit his father, who was very ill. And then he had an accident on his way back to Butterworth.
Listen.
So when we performed that day, it was very bad,
Yeah.
So the song was completed on his birthday. This information, I am saying it because people sometimes, wonder why there's so much emotion when a choir performs that song very well.
Yeah.
You find that there's quite a lot of information that comes through, like emotion that comes through.
Exactly.
It is because of all these factors, And at the same time, when I wrote it, I was going through a tough time. That was my first year in Cape Town. Things were not easy. I was even thinking about going back home. Things were not working out the way I wanted to, because I had arrived in Cape Town in 2011. So this is January 2012. And I was thinking maybe it's not what I needed to do.
You're still
Let
a
me go
student
back
that
home.
time?
No. 2011, I was working.
Oh, okay.
2011, yeah, I was working because I had just started with the UWC choir at the time.
Oh, okay.
But finding permanent work, that I can really say I'm securing future and I can take care of my family was really difficult, So things were very tough. So at that time, even the prayer section was not really about other people. It was about me. Because I felt maybe the decisions that I've made took me away from where I'm supposed to be, and now God is punishing me. So it was a very important prayer for me, as an individual. So the kind of emotion that comes through the song is very personal. As you can see, at 3 levels, it's myself, it's the composer, Ngobe, and also ubhuti wami,
Prathi.
ubhuti Esther Mahlangeni, whom I really loved, you see.
mm.
So that's why the song, sometimes feels so powerful.
I don't want to lie, Mr. Njeza. It's a beautiful song. I saw the choirs presenting
Thank you.
it. I don't know on your side, which choir do you think it gave you what you needed to hear from the song?
No, I wouldn't say that there's quite a number of choirs. But what I can say is that every conductor who tried to dig deeper than what is written on the score is among the conductors that when you think of that song, you think of their performances.
Yes.
Definitely.
No,
Definitely.
on my
Because that kind of information, because that kind of information, it's not easy, to just put personal things in the public space. Sometimes it requires the conductor to ask the right questions.
yes.
When you are talking to a composer, you must learn to ask the right questions. There is information that a composer can put out there quite easily, but other things sometimes we may feel they're not important. So you really need to poke the composer until you get the information that you want.
No, but on my side, I have the choir that I think it put the signature there.
Okay. And who is that?
Eastern Cape Police. Yeah.
Eastern Cape Police. Yes, they did well.
Yeah.
Very well. I
They
remember
did.
I was there Kuruleni
Yes, a
when they
carnival. Yeah.
presented. I missed them in Eastern Cape during NCF eliminations. But I
Yes.
was there Kuruleni. They did very well. And of course, Kolegile, we talk, almost all the time.
Okay. Now let's go to the African opera, Mandela. before we go there, let me ask first, so that you can explain for us laymen. Yeah, well, there's a work, there's a piece. You know the difference between work and a piece of music?
I would say a work would be the entire opera.
Okay.
Then a piece would be just one song, one item from that big work, which is the opera.
Okay. Okay. So a work is a combination of couple of songs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It might be an oratorio. It might be what is this? A song cycle. It could be a mass. It could be an opera or a cantata, you know, but it's a large work,
Okay.
not just a single song.
Yes. Yes. Let's go to this work of Mandela. It's also a beautiful work. And I think you took, I don't know how many years you took. Or months, I don't know. You'll tell us.
Yeah, it took months. It took
Mhm.
months.
What is the story behind this work?
Yeah, basically the storyline is the life of the late state president Nelson Mandela.
Yes.
That is but it touches on a lot of other members of his family, including the royal family, Yabatem. When Unati, the late Unati, first presented the work, the idea to me, he says he was writing a book about his ancestors. And then as he was writing about this, his family tree, he then discovered that there were interesting facts around the late president, Nelson Mandela.
Yes.
That he then decided to turn that book into an opera. So basically, that's how the story came about.
Okay.
So it starts before King Jongintaba, who is the man who then raised Nelson Mandela when his father, Mphakanyiso, passed on. So it begins there when the king, King Dalindyebo, had passed.
Yes.
And now they had to elect somebody who is going to take over. At the time, the rightful heir to the throne was still young. So that's how King Jongintaba was then picked. And the suggestion of King Jongintaba was advised by utata ka Nelson Mandela, uGadla Mphakanyiswa.
Yes.
Mandela. And I mean, the story works out beautifully because here is his father, Gadla Mphakanyiswa, choosing or nominating a name that eventually, when he passes on, would then raise his son.
Yes.
So it starts there. It passes through when Mphakanyiswa dies and instructs his wife, Umam Nosegeni, to take the young Nelson, around 7 or 9 years old, from Ekunu to Emqhekezweni, where he would be raised by King Jongintaba.
Yes.
And it moves through when Ubab Nelson and his cousin Justice decided to leave, you know, bazimela babheka eGauteng. And the reason for them escaping was because the king wanted to arrange wives for them. And when Unati narrated this thing, it's like he knew that they had girlfriends, these two,
Yes.
but then decided to choose those girls, but twist them. Whoever was with Justice would be wife to Nelson. And they saw that, nah, this is not going to work. And he says that Ubab Nelson used to say, his girlfriend got Justice was ugly, so he didn't want him. So from there, they then ran to a mine where there was a man who was closer to the family, and they lied to him that they were sent by the king, and then they were employed. It moves to when he met Omam Adelaide Tambo, no Or Tambo, and how they introduced him
Yes,
to
yes.
politics. And then it goes to when he met the late Mama Winnie, and then later they get married. He's inaugurated as the state president. I think that's where he ended it. And then at the end, because when we performed the piece, in fact, months before we performed it, because the president passed on in 2013, December.
Yes.
And then we performed this in May 2014. That's when it was premiered.
Yeah.
That was the first performance. So he then we then worked on a tribute, which then forms the very finale of the piece. So that is the storyline.
You, Mr. Njeza, you have a wide range of composition, and looking at these two now, esithetha ngayo, UMTHETHO and the opera. Opera, let's say, in a politic phakathi. UMTHETHO is religious. Which composition you found it difficult or even exciting composing between these two?
Both have their own challenges.
Yeah.
But where the text is not mine, I find that very challenging to compose.
Okay.
Because before I can compose, I need to internalize the text so that it becomes mine. That's the first challenge. The second challenge is that when the text is yours, it's relatively easy to arrange music that is going to fit the text. When it is not yours, sometimes you have an edge to say, okay, how about maybe I twist the sentence like this, or I change this word, I used maybe a synonym to it, which will then work well in this line, or even give, a beauty to the music, because it's not really about placing words or just text. Also, there must be an aesthetic that comes through the text on its own that is going to excite, the performers. Also, that is going to challenge the performers to think beyond what is written, maybe to make it a bit poetic in nature. So with that said, UMTHETHO would have been easier. Exciting, I don't know, because of the emotion that went through it. Because when I wrote that song, I wrote it at a go. It started and didn't want to end up until the last note of the song. The editing and whatever else happened much later. But otherwise, excuse me, the song itself was composed at a go. So I would pick UMTHETHO rather than the opera.
Yes. Some people deny the question. So the question, but some people are born with a talent of composing, and some they took it further to study composition. Some they don't go to school at all. Ne? Intoni advantage yokuya esikolweni to add with God-given talent now composer?
There's a lot that you learn. Like I said at the beginning, it's very difficult, or I find it challenging, to speak about my own work.
Yes.
How I constructed the work, I find it difficult because most of the things that I do, or in terms of writing, come naturally. I hear the music, I write it down. Then I relook at it, I edit it. But to get deeper into the compositional approach, sometimes it's very difficult. So when you study composition, you study other composers, a wide range of composers, how they went about composing their pieces.
Yes.
Also, in the process, you learn strategies of taking, say, 4 notes and developing those 4 notes into a song. That is a technique. It's like singing. You go to a music school with talent, but then in the music school, they then teach you the technique for longevity of that voice.
Yeah.
And for you to be able to tackle different genres of music or different songs, because you have the technique. So as a composer, if you are presented with a particular genre, let's say you want to compose a sonata,
Yes.
there's a particular form that is being followed there. If you want to modify that form or do your own things, at least you must know it first, so that you are able to say, I know this is the structure of a sonata. I decided deliberately to twist it here for this reason and that. So composers who did not really go to study composition, not necessarily go to university.
Yeah, yeah.
You can actually study composition with a composer. Just following. Look at Professor Mzilikazi Khumalo.
Yes.
He was a professor of linguistics. He didn't go to school for composition, but look at his work at a textbook for composition.
Yeah.
I'm currently studying his music right now.
Yeah.
So those are the advantages. And I would encourage everyone who is thinking of registering or maybe studying with a composer, do it. But that doesn't mean accept everything that comes your way.
Yes.
You know what is it that will improve your work, you know. But be open, learn different techniques so that you can actually, write music that is going to go global rather than writing for a small corner where you are.
Let me ask this question. I like also this question. How far are we as African composers to do research of African instruments? Because ndibuza lo mbuzo, sometimes I just feel like siculo lesintu, there's a lot of orchestra, there's a lot of Western. Then I feel like we half African, then we half Western.
No, that's true. That is very true. Perhaps let's look at our background. Yes. as African composers. I will focus on South African composers in particular.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I wanted to procure a set of marimba for my department when I was still at UWC.
Yes.
Because I was dealing with arts and culture, performing arts, productions and programs that we were doing on campus, including the choir. So I wanted to incorporate a marimba band within. And I got shocked to see that a set of marimba goes for over 100K, 100,000 to secure that.
Yeah.
And if you work for any institution, if you're gonna purchase anything that is that amount, I mean over 10,000 rands, you need to know where this thing will be placed, how it will be taken care of, all of those things. And it takes quite some time. I left before I could finalize that transaction. But the point I'm trying to make is that if for us to be exposed to those kind of instruments, the African instruments, some of them. I'm just mentioning marimba. There are
Yes,
many
yes, yes.
that that expensive and not accessible. Then definitely we won't know how to write for them, and also we will not actually write for them. The other thing now, let's look at the Western art instruments. The competitions that we normally write for when they were still there. Like now, there's the new competition coming up.
Yes.
If you look at the lineup for Western music, all those massive pieces there are run with an orchestra.
Exactly.
And that is a standard Western orchestra. So if you are featured there, the organization may not afford to hire two orchestras, an African orchestra and a Western orchestra.
Yes, yes.
And an African orchestra is not readily available. I mean, almost in these big cities, you find an orchestra or at least players that can be put together to play strings, some winds, brass, you know, percussion. So the pace is very slow.
Yes.
But I must say, we are trying. We're trying. That's one of the things that I am also going to focus on, because at Rhodes University we have that place called ILAM. It's the International Library of African Music. Okay. That's where the studies of African music with instruments. When you walk into ILAM, you see all these African instruments from most countries in Africa. So I'm going to learn such instruments, and it's one of my future goals for us to reorchestrate MADIBA, the African Opera, and incorporate a lot of African instruments. For now, everybody knows I was working with Kutlwano Masote there.
Yes.
Sometimes he would use extended techniques of strings to make them resemble certain sounds that could have been played maybe by Uadi, you know, those kind of instruments. So maybe in the near future, we will then reorchestrate it and have those instruments, you know, within the orchestra. So we are trying, and I would encourage all composers, when they get access, to actually learn those instruments.
Interesting, bro. Interesting. Now I would love to know more about African instruments because I only know marimba and Oadi. Then others, I don't know more about them.
There are many. There are xylophones, there are horns, you know, from different African countries. There are string instruments like kora. There are many, you know, imbira, the one you play on your thumbs. You see, those instruments are still there, but we don't see them, you know, every day, especially in our townships and villages where we come from.
Mr. Njeza, the last question. Let me make an example of Mr. Ngobe.
Okay.
Mr. Ngobe, music wakhe as audience bese receiver ngehlobo loba we know ba if kukho iculo liculwayo kule competition kaNgobe sizawuva la church movement, sabona la church movement music wakhe is Christian. When how would you love music wakho as an audience so receive it?
I am very patient with myself first.
Yes.
I have not really, I believe I have not really established my style that I would say, this is how I write.
Yes.
At the same time, I wouldn't want to really box myself, because whatever comes to me, I write it. For instance, if you put UMTHETHO, maybe you take Ndakudumisa Thixo, and you take Isithwalandwe.
Yes.
is Twalando. These are 3 different pieces. To an extent that if you don't know the composer, you might not think they were composed by the same person.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say this is how.
Okay.
However, there's not a single song that I have composed that is not emotionally involved.
That's true.
Because I'm that kind of a person. I'm not saying sad. I'm not
Yes.
saying sad at all. But I'm saying if you are going to work with any of my songs, just know there is an emotion that goes through that song. And until you find it, then the music might not make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Ndiyakuva bra Sibu. Anything osebenza kuyo now on composition?
Besides just arrangements, I'm working on a composition portfolio for my studies.
Okay.
So that's what I'm working on. And as you probably know, I've just started with a new choir, the Rhodes University Chamber Choir. Actually, last week was my first session with them.
Okay.
So part of my time is dedicated to the choir, and my new job, because I started in July last year. But one thing I would like to say, viewing this interview, I'm not sure if my internet is fine.
Yeah,
I just
it's
saw
still
that
fine.
it is unstable.
You're still fine. You're still fine.
Okay. There is an effort to make African music, that is more especially for music composed by Black composers in South Africa, to make it accessible. Because currently, if you don't know Njeza personally, or maybe you're not friends with him on Facebook or wherever in social media, or you don't have his number or email address, you go anywhere, everywhere, asking, do you have UMTHETho by Njeza? Do you have this song by so and so? But when we are looking for Western music, we simply go online, we get it, whether you buy it or you get it from the free online sites. So there is an effort. I'm also working on it, but mine is going slowly. But what is important is that we're doing it. Someone who has already put his out there, Mr. John Manamela, the pianist.
Yes.
There's a very wonderful platform that him and his team have created.
Oh, okay.
Where you click on the link. There's a link. I'll ask him to share it because he shared this with me. I saw it. There are songs that are already there that you can just go click on the song.
Okay.
And also, it's important that if those songs are being sold, because they're very cheap, the price is very low, part of the money supports the families and supports the research into our music. So it's important even for choristers to understand that in order for the sector to grow, we have to support it. Even if you buy that song for like 10 rands, that is your contribution towards the sector. So let's support that initiative by John Manamela and everyone else. Your platform here, people are going to know more about me. Maybe there's something that I said which I haven't said before. So all these platforms need to be supported so that our music is out there and can be supported and grow. So that's my main message at the end of this interview. Thank you so much, man.
Mr. Njeza, amade ngawetyala. There's no basemade na, but amade ngawetyala. Siyabulela.
Made, man. Made.
Siyabulela ixesha lakho bhuti wam man. On your busy schedule ukwazi usqueeze in. Siyabulela kakhulu man bhuti wam.
Siyabulela nam. Inkosi kakhulu for having me.
Enkosi ke bhuti Shavu.